Breaking news! Hold that roar, because the moment is now. November has arrived, and with it, the turning point that separates those who dream from those who fight for glory. The atmosphere in Detroit is tense, the future of the season is on the line, and every step, every decision, could change everything. The fans can feel it, there's something in the air. A strange silence, an expectation growing with every hour before the trade deadline. It's the kind of moment that reveals who has the courage to act, and who's willing to watch the chance slip away. So before we dive into this full analysis, smash that like button to support the channel and show your belief in the Lions. And drop a comment below. What should the team do now? Add reinforcements? Stick with the current roster? Tell me what your blue and silver heart is feeling, because this is a conversation from fan to fan. Now, take a deep breath, because the truth is, the fate of this season is about to be decided. Go Lions, I believe. Right now, Lions Nation is staring straight into one of those defining crossroads that can make or break a season. It's November, the time of year when the NFL landscape starts to take shape, when pretenders fade and contenders sharpen their claws. But the question hovering over Detroit right now couldn't be louder. What exactly are these Lions? Are they good? Are they great? Or are they just caught somewhere in the middle? A team unsure if it's ready to take that next step? By this time tomorrow, the trade deadline will be history, and whatever roster walks out of Allen Park will be the one fighting for the playoff run. The Lions currently cling to the 7th seed in the NFC, with the Chicago Bears breathing down their necks at number 8. Every snap from this point on carries playoff weight, but the conversation after Dan Campbell's latest press conference has left fans restless. The man himself, known for his brutal honesty, didn't sound like a coach preparing for a move. When asked about trade discussions, Campbell admitted there hadn't been any meaningful talks with GM Brad Holmes. No smoke screens, no cryptic hints, just an unsettling silence. That's what's got Lions fans scratching their heads tonight, because while Campbell's transparency earns respect, it also fuels anxiety. With injuries piling up, especially across the offensive line, and playoff positioning on the line, standing still feels like a gamble. This franchise has built its culture on next man up resilience, turning practice squad players into contributors and backups into fighters. But even that identity has limits. Campbell praised his reserve players again this week, reinforcing that belief. Still, when you've been calling for help in the trenches for 2 straight seasons, from the pass rush to the secondary, it's hard not to wonder how much longer next man up can carry this team through championship ambitions. There are names floating around, like Washington's Andrew Wiley and Nick Allegretti, veterans with playoff experience who could help shore up the offensive front. And the need is clear. Rookie guard Christian Mahogany broke a bone in his leg and will miss time, while Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell both missed practice this week. Dan Campbell insists those injuries aren't long-term, but even a few missed weeks could prove costly in this stretch of the season. The truth is, there's a strange tension inside this team right now. Something feels off. Maybe it's the change in offensive coordinator. Maybe it's the ripple effect of Frank Ragnow's retirement, losing not just a center but a leader who anchored the offense with quiet authority. Chemistry matters, and right now that chemistry looks like it's still searching for balance. Last year spoiled everyone. The Lions went on an unbelievable run, fought through adversity, and seemed poised to rewrite history. But when it all collapsed in the divisional round, it became clear that the team had been running on fumes for weeks. Losing Aiden Hutchinson to injury last season felt like the soul of the defense got ripped out. Even though Darius stepped in and led the team in sacks, it wasn't enough to replace the energy Hutch brought to the field. This season, those ghosts are creeping back in. Detroit hasn't lost 2 straight games in nearly 3 years, not since 2022, when Aubrey Pleasant was fired. That streak ended this week, and the fan base feels the sting. The loss was ugly, the kind of game that reminds you how fragile momentum really is in this league. Nobody showed up, not on offense, not on defense. And while you could chalk it up to any given Sunday, it still burns. Because this team is supposed to be better than that. This is supposed to be a team that dominates opponents like the Commanders, not one that looks lost against them. And that's what makes the next 24 hours so important. The trade deadline isn't just about transactions, it's about direction. Do Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell still believe this roster, as it stands, can make a Super Bowl run? Or do they finally acknowledge that a few strategic moves could be the difference between another early playoff exit and real contention? The Lions sit at 5-3 right now, still very much alive but clearly less dominant than last season's squad. At this same point a year ago, they were 6-2 and riding a wave of confidence. But that record meant nothing in the end. As one fan put it, 15-2 is just a number when you can't win in January. Being ahead of schedule doesn't mean much if the team can't deliver when it counts. This season was supposed to be about finishing what last year started, not rebooting into another retool. Now it's all about decisions. Stand pat and risk watching the season slip away, or make a bold move and send a message to the locker room that the front office still believes this team is capable of more. The Lions are balanced on that knife's edge tonight, the kind of moment that defines how history remembers a season. Because make no mistake, once that deadline passes, there's no turning back. When the clock hits 4 o'clock tomorrow, the Lions will be locked into the roster that carries them through the second half of this season. Every waiver, every cut, every missed opportunity will matter. And that's where the unease really sets in. The window for this version of the Detroit Lions isn't infinite. The longer they wait to make a bold move, the louder the murmurs become. You can already feel it creeping through the fan base. Year 6 under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, and still no Super Bowl appearance. It's not panic, but it's frustration. This city has waited decades to believe, and last year gave them a taste of what greatness might feel like. Now anything less than progress feels like regression. The novelty of simply being a good team is starting to fade. Lions fans don't want to be good anymore. They want to be great. They want to be feared. They want to stop being the almost story of the NFL. And that's why all eyes are on Brad Holmes right now. He's built this roster from the ground up, reshaped the culture, hit on multiple draft picks, but lately, his magic touch has felt quieter. Holmes deserves credit for assembling a team that's no longer a punchline, but if he refuses to act when the team clearly needs reinforcements, he'll have to own the consequences too. Dan Campbell's loyalty to his guys is admirable, but even the most battle-tested locker room can only hold so long before cracks appear. This is where great franchises separate themselves. Look at Kansas City. Look at New England during their dynasty years. Those teams never settled. They didn't accept being close. They made aggressive moves to stay at the top because greatness demands it. They didn't tolerate mediocrity, and they didn't sugarcoat losses. That's the mindset Detroit needs right now. This fan base has embraced the grit, the identity, the bite, but now it's time for the organization to back that mentality with action. The current playoff picture says a lot. The Lions have slipped to the 7th seed, still in, but barely hanging on. The Packers lead the NFC North after Detroit's stumble, and the margin for error has evaporated. A win against Washington could change everything, but it could also mean nothing if the underlying issues remain unaddressed. Every game from this point forward is essentially a playoff game. Every mistake could swing the season. And think about what happens if they stand pat. If no trade happens and the Lions falter again late in the year, maybe another early playoff exit, maybe missing the postseason altogether, those murmurs will turn into noise. The questions will get sharper. The patience will thin. Year 6 is a long time to wait for a breakthrough, especially when the city finally dared to believe it was coming. You can only sell potential for so long before people start demanding results. Still, for all the frustration, this season isn't lost. Detroit is 5-3, still right in the mix. They've fought through adversity before, that's part of their DNA. But what happens over the next few days, and the attitude they bring into this next stretch, will define whether this is just another learning year or the start of something real. The team has too much heart, too much leadership, and too much talent to fade quietly. The question is whether the front office will match that fire with decisive action. So as the deadline approaches and the season hits its midpoint, the choice is simple. Stay comfortable and hope for the best, or swing big and remind the league that Detroit isn't here to survive. It's here to dominate. If you believe the Lions should take that risk, if you believe this team is one piece away from turning potential into power, then hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because we'll be breaking down every move, every snap, and every heartbeat of this Lions journey. And while you're here, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Brad Holmes pull the trigger at the deadline, or do you still trust this group to finish the job on their own? Go Lions! And I'll see you in the next video. And here's the thing, Lions Nation, whether you're frustrated, hopeful, or flat out confused, one truth remains. This team still controls its own destiny. 5-3 isn't where anyone wanted to be, but it's not the end. What defines the rest of this season won't be the injuries, the missed tackles, or the rough play calling. It'll be how this locker room responds when their backs are against the wall. Dan Campbell built this team around resilience. That grit isn't just a catchphrase for press conferences. It's the backbone of everything this franchise has become under his watch. Remember where this team came from. Remember 3-13-1. Remember being the league's punching bag. Detroit clawed its way out of that hole with discipline, toughness, and unity. That same DNA still lives in this locker room. The problem is, they need to rediscover it now more than ever, because lately, it feels like that edge, that ferocity that made the Lions such a nightmare to face, has dulled. Whether it's because of the offensive adjustments, the missing leadership of Ragnow, or the simple whir of expectation, something in the energy has shifted. The team that used to hunt now looks like it's trying not to be hunted, and that's a dangerous place to be in the NFL. But if you know this team's history, you also know that Detroit thrives when it's doubted. Last season, after getting embarrassed by Baltimore, they came roaring back and ripped off a string of wins that reignited belief. The question is whether they can summon that same fight again, because the schedule isn't going to show mercy. Every opponent from here on out is fighting for their playoff lives. 2. The Commanders, even without their starting quarterback, will come hungry, and the Lions have to match that desperation. If there's one silver lining, it's that this locker room doesn't fracture easily. Jared Goff, despite his ups and downs, remains a steady presence. Aiden Hutchinson's leadership continues to grow, even as he's battled through injuries and extra attention from double teams. And on offense, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs have kept showing up, giving this team a heartbeat when everything else looks out of rhythm. Those are the sparks that can ignite a turnaround, but they need help. That's why this trade deadline feels so defining. Even one key addition could change the mood in that locker room, send a message that the front office still believes, still wants to win now. Whether it's an offensive lineman to protect Goff or a defensive piece to reignite the pass rush, a move at this stage isn't just about talent. It's about belief. It's about showing every man on that roster that Detroit isn't settling for almost. But if Holmes and Campbell choose to stand pat, then all the pressure shifts back to the players. They'll have to dig deep, rally, and prove that the foundation built over the past few years is strong enough to withstand adversity on its own. That's where leadership comes in, the kind that isn't scripted, the kind that happens behind closed doors. The Lions will need it, because as the playoff race tightens and the noise outside grows louder, staying united will mean everything. And let's be honest, the fans deserve more than moral victories. Ford Field has been louder than ever. The city has embraced this team like family. Detroit has waited too long, believed too fiercely, and endured too much heartbreak to see another promising season fade into what-ifs. The fans don't